Okay, everybody, it's 9:05 as promised, and I think we're not going to wait any longer, so those who are still coming will get us along the way. My name is Simon, and I take care of the TAGe, the MGIP Talking Across Generations on Education's event, together with my colleague Radhika and a lot of other team members at the Institute. We've organized pretty much a lot of tags. This is, I think, our 7th. And to just give you a brief introduction of the tag, we thought of an idea or of a platform where we could bring together brilliant young people and high-leveled experts or policymakers to discuss ideas or issues that are very, very important to our society. These issues could cut across violent extremism, internet and radicalization, as well as the role of digital pedagogies in educating for peace and sustainability. So this tag today, as I said before, is the 7th of the many tags that we have organized, including independently organized Talking Across Generation on Education events, of which last June we were invited by the President of the United Nations General Assembly to organize an iTAGe during their high-level event on education. And we also organized another iTAGe, independently organized tag, with our partner organization, Youth, during their 13th annual European Youth Summit in Germany. So the reason to why we've modeled the iTAGe is so that we can give youth-led organizations and organizations working in the area of education for peace and sustainability to organize their own TAGes, their own independently organized iTAGe. And if you would want to run one of those, you can get hold of me or Radhika anytime after this event. Without further ado, I invite you all to enjoy the TAGe experience and allow me to introduce you to our very special moderator, Veronica Soboleva. A round of applause for her. Veronica is very inspiring. I like the work that she does. She is the co-founder of Space University, a university in Barcelona, Spain, that is redefining everything that we understand about universities. It's totally flipping the entire university experience for students in the area of ICT. And I will hand it over to Veronica to take it away. Everybody, have a nice TAGe experience.
Thank you, Simon, for this warm welcome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Visakhapatnam. Thank you, UNESCO MGIP, for organizing this TAGe event, Talking Across Generations. So basically, the goal of this event is to mainstream the collective voices of youth in the highest level of policymakers. So today, we will have a wonderful dialogue where we will have different representatives from all over the world, from different areas and industries. But moreover, we will have the whole online community. So I would like to remind you that we're now live streaming, and you can tweet your questions on our Twitter account at UNESCO_MGIP. And don't forget to put the hashtag TAGe Vizag. So today, the question that we will be discussing is how the digital pedagogies can bridge the gap or can exacerbate the inequality gap in education. Prior to this event, we've had an online discussion. We've selected some youth participants that were very active through this online dialogue, and they're here today. So basically, we've discussed 3 main topics. The first one was how to deliver innovative education into classrooms within the very different areas. The second question that we've been discussing is what is the role of youth and how they can take an active role of an active citizenship to implement the digital pedagogies and innovation in education. And the third question, which will be one of the biggest questions of our discussion today, is actually how the different stakeholders, including the state, including governmental institutions, including the youth, can contribute to innovation in education. So let's start the dialogue, and I would like to introduce you to Suren, who is representing Armenian today, and he's working on a very interesting digital project today. So some of you have heard his presentation yesterday. So Suren, what is the role of youth? Because you are a young entrepreneur and you're interfering with different stakeholders and promoting digital education through the whole country. Can you share your experience and the best practices with all of us?
Sure. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here and address this remarkable audience. So the project that we are running called Dasaran, it is in translation from Armenian means classroom. Well, the idea was to bring everyone, every single student in Armenia, an equal opportunity to study. And the way we did it back in 2009, we of course used the high tech. We first of all created electronic pipelines, which goes and connects to every Armenian family where there is a school-age child. Then in 2010, we asked the government of Armenia to give them their best quality content of education. And through these pipelines, we disseminated it equally towards every Armenian family with no matter what is their geographical location or social background. But the content for the kids is not interesting. The idea is that education should be fun and cool and entertaining first of all. So kids shouldn't accept it as a mandatory. And we decided to break this old stereotype. So we created 59 actually different games helping kids to learn their own subjects like math, geography, history. But besides, we are teaching kids whatever is not being taught by the Ministry of Armenian Education. So we cover the gap. We teach them about driving rules, social inclusion, bullying, tolerance, about constitution, their own rights, criminal code, about why to save energy or water. So idea is not to only educate the students, but to shape their behavioral pattern as citizens. So that's what we are trying to do in reality. The next thing what we really need to talk is the linkage between government and the education. What we really believe, how government should think about education. When you are representing government and you are a policymaker, you should think, okay, what kind of country do I want to have within 10 years, let's say? And then when you figure it out, let's say a technologically developed country, then you start preparing citizens for that country. So the idea is to understand what kind of citizens we want to develop. Do we want them to be team players, patriots, creative thinkers? Do we want them to be visionary? Do we want them to know problem-solving skills? So what kind of skills do we need for our students after a K-12 education? Because otherwise, you know, when you teach your students about the history, let's say, of ancient Rome, but you do not teach them how they're going to use this information and knowledge in their today life and how it's going to help them to solve their today's problem, then this knowledge doesn't make sense. It doesn't have real power, because the knowledge starts having a power when you know how to use your knowledge. So the idea is, in reality, to learn and to teach your students in a manner where you know what kind of city or what kind of country you want to have in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suren, for sharing these best practices. And it's a wonderful context because it's an emerging country and you managed to develop a great digital tool that can help and serve the whole country. And talking about the skills, I would like to refer to your neighbor, Santiago, coming all the way long from Colombia last night. Because Santiago is a very active young entrepreneur, basically focusing on these new skills that you've been mentioning, such as creativity. And Santiago, maybe you can explain what is your role, because you're representing youth and you are very involved into different projects with all the main stakeholders.
Of course. Thank you, Veronica. I'm very happy to be here. In Colombia, we started some years ago an organization called ¿Cómo lo cambiarías?, which means, how would you change it? And what we do is that we have the mission to inspire students to be agents of change through education. How do we do it? So we develop educative programs in schools, mostly high schools, some in universities, where we deliver workshops on social entrepreneurship, creativity, storytelling, leadership, sustainability. And with all those workshops, we take our students, while they do the workshops, to think on a problem, to have empathy, and to see what are the problems that are out there in their communities, in their schools. And then, while we do the workshops with them, we give them the tools so they can create a creative strategy to solve those problems. So while we are doing these kind of workshops in different of these skills, we are making that they that they can like do teamwork, they can collaborate, they can have initiative. So we are giving a lot to them, a lot of skills to the 21st century. So that is, we are trying to change the conversation in the schools, in the high schools, from what do you want to study to what is the problem that you want to solve. And we really believe that this conversation could be changed in every school. Every teacher could ask the students, what is the problem that you want to solve? Because if you ask that to a student who is lost, who doesn't know what to study, maybe he will do better, right? He will do something that he really likes. And we also are thinking that the 75% of the children entering primary school today are going to end up in jobs that doesn't exist today. So we need to give them the skills that they really need to thrive. And that is what we are trying to do with the development of these skills.
Thank you very much, Santiago. It's very inspiring for all of us to see such an active young generation. By the way, so that you know, this week the Oxford Dictionary has selected the word of the year 2017, and this word is youthquake. It means the significant cultural, political, or social change arising from the youth. So now I would like to refer to another youth representatives, KK, Dr. KK Singh, the founder of the International Youth Committee. And I think a lot of our guests today are coming through KK's invitation. So KK,
Thank you.
You're actively interacting with different governments and institutions. So what the role your organization plays and how it can help to promote digital pedagogies around the world?
Yeah, thank you so much, Veronica. And a very warm welcome to all of you. You know, the topic itself is very interesting to all of us, and I think to everyone also. You see, because of the technology, KK is here in front of you. You know, the organizations what we are working for, the International Youth Committee, we are providing the educational resources now serving more than 6 lakh youths across the 173 countries. We've been starting the journey since 2007, almost 10 years from today. I've been traveling across the world, more than 94 countries so far. I'm just 26 years old, and I have very wide learning experience by listening the voice of the youths from across the globe. I have a very unique experience on what are the challenges they are facing in their countries or in their communities. So I'm here with the big questions that is technology is the solution for the bridging the gap of this educational inequality. I think it will be a very great debate also. And currently I'm working with the principle of the advocacy, participation and harmonizations with various world leaders, especially the youth leaders. And we are also conducting various activities, initiatives and various programs in order to advocate and also to empower the youths to reach our goals, our objectives, and our vision. So, with these few words, I just want to conclude for time.
Thank you, KK. It's great to see all these youth initiatives and great communities that were built until now. So for now, we have a very positive picture of this positive impact coming from the youth, but I would like to get our discussion to the next level and talking about emerging countries and difficult aspects. We have representatives coming from Togo, coming from Afghanistan, where the local context is not so easy, but they are performing very well, and I would like Charles and Mustafa to share the best practices from your region and to share with us the problems that youth is facing on a daily basis. So, Charles.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Last time I have to chat with Veronica with Skype, and I work in very place to have internet just for this activity, and I cannot find a good connection to speak with her. That is one of difficulties we have in our country and young people face. I have to do online training, and there is a big challenge when we work with young people, and also when we talk today about digital divide, we think about the divide between the North Country and South Country, but also between the cities and villages in Africa. So the thing is that the actual system of education is not help young people in the rural area to get out of poverty and start the activity that bring them to develop their community. So what we are doing now is to bring them technology, teach them technology, so they can use this technology to improve their activity and develop their local community. I think when we teach young people in this area, tomorrow they will not leave their area for the cities and leave Africa country to Europe country, because today in Europe the big challenge for the Europe is those people who leave the local area, the local village, not only the village for cities, but also for Europe via Libya or other countries. So it is important today to work on digital literacy in this local rural area. Also, bring the good part of technology. I think, from my perspective, that technology is an opportunity for Africa. So the project I work on is Maison Unyava, which is the place to teach digital technology or knowledge. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you for sharing this context with us. And I would like to refer to our very special guest today, Taskin. She is the PhD researcher at Cambridge University and the co-founder of Kvela. And her work is focused on the role of African massive online open courses, MOOC. So I would like you, Taskin, to share with us both a research perspective and I know that you've been working a lot in the field, so how it can actually go into the practice and what are the best practices that you can mention.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. I'm absolutely honored to be able to speak to you today. So, as Veronica mentioned, my PhD topic looks at the link between massive open online courses and its intersection with digital neocolonialism. So because of this, I actually take the stance that technology, in fact, exacerbates inequality in its current form. Now, to give you an example from MOOCs, I take the edX platform of MOOCs, which many of you might have heard of. Now, on this platform, 71% of the participants of these MOOCs have a bachelor's degree already. That means that this MOOC, which is a platform for free education, is actually being utilized by those that already have access to education. And those that do not have access to education and are under-resourced are actually further marginalized by this. Now, before we go on, I actually wanted to clarify something within the topic. So I wanted to clarify the difference between absolute justice and relative justice. And I use a definition by Wolfgang Sachs. So when we talk about absolute justice, we look at an individual's capability to reach their minimal basic living conditions and to access their basic human rights. When we look at relative justice, that is where inequality comes into play. And this is where technology can help some and disadvantage others. So the reason I want to bring this out is because an argument that technology helps to achieve one's basic human rights is very different from an argument talking about whether technology increases inequality. So when technology is brought into the picture, it often changes the norms of how a society works. So I'll give you an example from my research. One of my participants said that now when he needs to apply for a job, he needs to email his CV. I'm sure many of you have experienced that. That's how the society functions today. But he says that in order to do this, he needs to know how to type, he needs to have an email address, and he needs to have a good internet connection. And in the past, he didn't need this. So when society changes how it functions, but some people don't have this technology, it's actually disadvantaging them. So another thing I want to draw on is something called the knowledge gap theory from the 1970s. And this was actually brought in with print media. And it tells us that those who have a higher socioeconomic status tend to acquire, internalize, and make use of information at a faster rate than those of a lower socioeconomic status, so that the knowledge gap increases between the rich and poor. And you can see that this has actually exacerbated when technology has been brought into the picture. Now, I make the statement that technology exacerbates inequality, but I make this only because I think that the Western MOOC models have been, or Western models of technology have been implemented in non-Western contexts without taking into account local knowledges and practices. Now, I often hear the phrase that we need to adapt to local context. And I actually strongly dislike this phrase because it assumes that solutions lie in the Western version of technology. And these Western versions of technology can merely be tweaked and tinkered with in order to suit a non-Western context. So what this actually does is it puts technology on a platform of superiority, and it treats the rest of the world as something that is uncivilized or inferior and is in need of this westernization in order to progress. Rather, what I propose is this transformation from within. So working at a grassroots level from a ground up focus to focus on local communities and make them the target group and basically oppose this Western trickling down of technology. So with this model, this ground-up model, I think that technology can in fact reduce inequality, but we definitely need to change how we are implementing technology. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Taskin. And getting back to the question that you just mentioned and getting back to the ground model, I would like to introduce your neighbor, Bala, who is representing India today. And his project is coming from the ground level, and he manages to incorporate the whole community within his project. So Bala, maybe you can explain us a little bit better.
Thank you. I'm Bala Gopal. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm working on a startup called Krishworks, and what we do is we help rural entrepreneurs, help primary school children become more fluent in English. As it stands, like Taskin has mentioned, currently for somebody to take advantage of a lot of online content, they need to have a lot of factors going their way. Like they need to be familiar with technology, they need to be familiar with English, they need to have strong and stable internet connections, they need to have the discipline to watch all the hours of videos and do well in the tests. And right now that's a very small percentage of the population. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to de-skill the effort it takes to take a class, so that ultimately the quality of education a child receives should be independent of the quality of the teacher delivering it.
Thank you so much. Since we're here within the Indian context, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Aditya, the Secretary of Andhra Pradesh for Higher School and University Education. And Mr. Aditya, I know that you're a big passion of technologies and how the technologies can be incorporated to the local context and how sensitive it might be. So you've heard already some of our youth activists and participants. What are the questions that you would like to ask them regarding the project that they are currently doing in their countries, and what are the best practices here at Andhra Pradesh that you would like to share with the international community?
Thank you,
so much.
What I've heard from the participants, because I represent the government, on the government there is a lot of responsibility. When we handle things, when we get things into the school, when we get things into the classroom, we have to handle it very carefully and very sensitive, with lots of sensitivity. So my take on technology is it should not either become a toy or a tedium, because the way adults take technology is different from how a child takes a technology. How a school child, how a school kid who goes to the school, how he will take to the technology. Generally, the kids first take to the technology as a toy, because class is a tedium, classroom is a tedium, so the technology is like a toy to them. But this match, the extreme between the toy and tedium, how the developers who develop technology, how they use the digital technology for the classroom, how they are going to bring a very happy kind of a solution where the tedium is not a tedium and it's neither a toy. So that is a challenge I think the developers have to tell us. Secondly, because the government has to provide the resources for the technology to be brought into the curriculum and the classroom. So the resource is also another challenge, and there the technology has to be accessible. It should not be something, it should not have an elitist tag onto it. Generally what happens, the technology in the beginning has a little bit of elitism attached to it. So the government has to moderate it and ensure the technology is not just an elite kind of a thing which is just existing in some very good schools or wherever the resources are there. So as you have heard our Chief Minister yesterday, Government of Andhra Pradesh is trying to bring technology, bring broadband into each household and the classroom so that it is across the board. Everybody has access to fast internet and broadband. But then the challenge will come that how it is dealt in a classroom and how it is dealt in a household. How the parents take it and how little bit of, I think, training would be required for the parents also, because a lot of access, and the children will access their curriculum, their lessons from the house also, apart from the schools. Government of AP has come up with an idea in our books itself. We have put some QR codes. After the lesson is over, you have some question answer, and there is a QR code also. With a smartphone or a tab, you can just directly access. We put on the QR code and you can go to the lesson, and all the digital content you can access. So some of the things, so that every child who has a book, he goes through a lesson, at the end of the lesson there is a QR code. You can just put your thing and you can get further information on the lessons and any further training you need to have on that lesson. So that is one thing. Another thing in AP, what we have done is, again, to remove the elitist tag from the technology. Each teacher, we feel, is a creative person. He has a lot of creativity in him, because day in and day out he's interacting with a lot of children, and the best of the inputs come from the children themselves. So a teacher, I feel, is the most creative person, and the capacity to generate, the capacity to bring such kind of inputs through the digital technology lies with those teachers only. So what we have done, we have created a platform called AP Knowledge Exchange Platform, where each teacher is encouraged to bring his own lesson, the way he wants to teach to the child, and how he wants to make this lesson accessible to so many other children. Because most of our schools are getting connected through the digital platform. More than 5,000 will be getting connected by March, and we hope that most of our schools will have this digital access. internet access. So each teacher would be encouraged to put his ideas into a lesson in mode, or whatever mode he feels like. And then how many children go to that lesson and see how it is influencing them, if they like it, whether it has a lot of acceptability, all those things will be judged. So these two things we are doing. First, ensure that the technology is not a toy, not a tedium, and it doesn't have an elitist tag to it. It goes across to each child, irrespective of when he goes to the school, which school he goes, doesn't matter. What he gets is the quality. That's what is our endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aditya. It's a very important aspect that you've been mentioning. It's about how the integration of technology and traditional teaching is happening within our societies. And sometimes we've observed it many times. A lot of NGOs are very active in emerging regions. They're bringing technology, they're bringing broadband, they're bringing computers, but somehow it doesn't work. While we should not underestimate the role of horizontal learning and the role of the teachers, you can have as many computers as you want at the classroom, but if you don't have this spark coming from the humans, especially the teachers, it will never work. So I would like to refer to our two guests, basically representing the teachers community. We have one professor from Brazil, Pedro, who is teaching digital technologies and app development today. And we have Lydia, who is creating and developing tools for forming teachers. So I would like you to start sharing your experience. Maybe Pedro, you can start as being a professor. What do you experience nowadays?
Yeah, good morning for everybody. As a professor, I believe this challenge of the gap of inequality of education remains on three key points. First, the empathy of the teacher, and the teacher must be we can't have anymore this traditional classroom model. There is a teacher and a student. We are all learners, and we must be collaborative. We have to put everybody in the same level. We are all learners. And then we have the problem of content creation, as Taskin said. The content must be contextualized. We can't present a content, for example, from US to India. The context is so different. So it must be created by locals. We have to create our own content. And then we have to build more partnerships between the government and the private companies, because they can build some facilities, they can build opportunities to develop this content, to develop these active methodologies. So we have to be different. We have to change this. We can't be the teachers we were in the past. We have to upgrade or to update this model to a more active, to more focus on the process or more focus on the student, not only the content, not only the teacher, but the whole process.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Lydia, you are currently developing the tool for forming teachers. Can you share this experience with us? And so far, what are the results and how it works?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I totally agree that today we should actually think about teachers, because the more you invest in teacher, the better results will be, the better outcome will be, right? The end user, of course, we know is the student, but why do we keep talking only about students and not even focusing on investment and development of teachers? Absolutely, I agree with all of the points that were made today. We live in the 21st century, but we use methodology of a 20th century. I have seen, and I think that you have seen the same situation when students teach teacher on how to use cell phones, how to use, social media, how to be active, and I believe that the project that we are doing, which is called EduLim Projects, is it's an online platform for teachers, specifically oriented on English as a second language teachers, that can that the platform will have lots of tools and professional trainings which are done via internet, and the only thing you will need to do is to have your cell phone. And our goal is to reach people in very remote areas. Currently we work in together with University in Central Asia. We work in 3 countries, and basically in very mountainous areas, which is very hard to reach. So, including Afghanistan. So far, what we have done is we have trained 93 teachers, ESL trainers, teachers, instructors, on new methods of methodology, 21st century methodology, types of assessment that they should include. Moreover, the project that the platform that is being developed right now, it's a pilot, and it will be launched in 2018. And the first trial will be in Kazakhstan, since we got the support from the Ministry of Education there, which is very, very important. I also agree with many speakers today that say that working with the government is an absolute priority, because because it's a win-win situation. You both work to improve the society. You both want to have quality education in the country. Thus, why not to turn to private sector as well? Because a private sector works way faster and has a lot of means and networks around the world. So I believe, moreover, I think that the usage of social media today in the 21st century digital pedagogy is very important. So I believe we really need to look at what children like and see how we can apply that onto teachers and include that in their own methodology, and of course to create new methodology, because you cannot apply the same thing, to every country. You need, because each country is unique, and teachers and students are unique in their own way. So it's very nice, I think, to work on the ground inside of the countries, various countries that we do now, and feel what the end user needs and deliver it to them.
Thank you, Lydia. Well, we've experienced a lot of different angles and approaches towards the question of education, digital education, bridging the inequality. And I would like to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Rosa, the former president of Kyrgyzstan and the board member of UNESCO MJIP. And prior to this event, we had incredible conversations with Rosa, and I was amazed by her polyvalent and multidimensional approach towards continuous education and towards the question of bringing the education to the majorities. Rosa, we know that you had to manage this question at a very difficult period, especially for your country, and you thought about so many different aspects. So what are the things that you would like to share with international communities, and maybe some points that you would like to comment on from what you heard today from our speakers? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do know that the conference composed from the delegates of 75 countries at least. So United Nations called for the Sustainable Development Program 2030. It means that each country today is striving to build their trajectory, their projection, how the country should rise up to 2030. And digital economy, digital education, these are the principal such lines of this development. All our countries are different, developed and developing, right? South and north. And we are talking today in many countries how to rid of just the normal illiteracy. Now we want to concord digital literacy. So there are gaps between them, sure. A new economy demands digital education and our skills and knowledge in new technologies, in IT. Don't forget about us, parents. We brought up you with Legos, with new apps, all sorts of, but we should also cope with new technologies and really help sometimes to our grandchildren. And what is the projection of this line? In this regard, I would say that in developed countries, I do see so many such activities to teach seniors how to learn apps, all sorts of new technologies. What are those students in our developing countries who are working with the senior people? We are talking about the new jobs in the universities. Why not really each university will start startups in their universities? Help to students legalize their business, and students will go to each school, communities, and other places to teach them, because each strata of the society needs to learn new technologies. I do know that India is full of such new ideas, new practices. I just can't remember this word, this is the word. It's flooring for farmers, where all the farmers come to special places and they learn how to get new seeds, what is the weather will be, and new technologies, new methodologies, how to, what to do and so on. This is a brilliant idea which spread now throughout the world. I do believe that all this microcredit movement needs a lot of IT technologies. In other words, I do believe that schools are very important. Universities are crucial to teach young people. But everyone today struggling in this world how to concord IT and new technologies. With this regard, I'm amazed what a broad spectrum of activity you do and how everyone is doing their job in all countries on the globe. But at the same time, I do believe that we should be more aggressive, more creative, and learn the best practices from the world.
Thank you very much. With regards to the new technologies, I would like to refer to our Twitter account, and Simon and Radhika from MGIP, they're mainstreaming the youth voices from the online discussion. So let's check the questions that we have.
The hashtag is TAGe Vizag. And, we'll be picking questions and integrating them into the discussions as well from the audience. And we have prizes. We have VR. We have a VR equipment for the best tweet or for the best question coming in during the tag and, the rest of the day. So, yes, send in your questions. And to all the panelists, and especially Veronica, the question is, sometimes, and it's from Happy Donut. I don't know who that is, but that's a cool name. Sometimes new practices are met with backlash from parents, teachers, and even students, as they have never been exposed to, liberal approaches to teaching. How do you facilitate that kind of transition? Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, indeed, it's a very nice question. So, I don't know if someone of our speakers would like to answer it. Please.
Yes, I myself an educator, and I try to test out all the new things with my students. And of course, they do not accept everything, but you have to sort of feel your audience and see what they're ready to accept and what not. You cannot, go 100% digital with them. It will never work. You need to do it very gradually. For example, we implement WhatsApp as a way to control their homework activities. We also work through Facebook live chats in order for students to be updated on everything that has been taught in the classroom. So it's a new technology. Children love it. They are up for anything new. But sometimes, yes, parents do not really understand why they need to, to provide their children with a computer or with the phone. Yes, with a new phone that can that has a camera. But after talking to them and really pointing out all the advantages, you get them to actually accept your ideas. And it's a really individual approach in my case, and it's a gradual approach as well. But I believe going 100% digital, of course, will not be very I would say good. Why? Because we have various learners. Some learners are very kinesthetic and they need to touch things, in order to learn. But just giving them the phone in order to learn, it's not going to do much. So that's why it's great to introduce various approaches in your classes.
Thank you, Lydia. I think we have another speaker, Pedro, who is having this contact with new digital pedagogies and new apps and parents and students on a daily basis. So what's your experience?
Yeah, we have to keep in mind that there are different methodologies, and some of them are natural, like game-based learning or challenge-based learning. We have to choose that one will fit for each situation. And some of them is, like I said, is natural for the children or for the students. It's not that hard to introduce, but yeah, we have to do it gradually. But we have to experiment different, to try different methodologies. But there are a lot of them, and I encourage you to discover these methodologies.
Thank you, Pedro. One of the methodologies you've been mentioning is gamification. And indeed, no matter how old we are or how young we are, we all like playing games. And I would like to introduce you to our next speaker, Mrs. Katherine Amman, the founder of Alliance Digitale in Canada, in Quebec. And Katherine is she's involved into creating the whole digital environment and helping game companies to promote their new ideas. And Katherine, what is your experience? How strong it can be as a tool like gaming, and how involved it is nowadays at the educational process?
Thank you, Veronica. Bonjour, everyone. I'm very happy to have the chance to be part of that important conversation. Now, Alliance Numérique is the association representing the gaming industry that is active in Montreal. We do benefit from a very dynamic hub, production hub. So there's a little less than 200 different studios active in the province of Quebec. They're all very focusing on developing innovative and fun games. And most of all those studios are also active in doing some sort of ed tech. Very few of them, I would say between 25 and maybe 40, are focusing the entire activity on EdTech. But most of the studios do have some activities in that field. The thing is, only a few years ago, the gaming industry was strictly focusing on offering a very interesting advertisement, and it was absolutely not targeting education or serious gaming as we are so much aware of the potential that we know today. So it's kind of a new trend. And because of that, there's a lot of opportunities for the studios to work to get involved in education. But my message would be, since the beginning of this conference, we've been focusing a lot on making sure that the governments get aware of the occasion, of the opportunity, and of all the spectrum of what EdTech and gaming and technology offers in general. my message this morning would be there's also a need to address the companies about the opportunity to produce educational and serious gaming and to take the risk to get in that field, because bureaucracy can be very strengthening for that type of industry that has absolutely no experience dealing with governments. So there's probably a little bit of lobbying to do in both ways, just to make sure that both planets get in contact efficiently. But there's definitely a lot of opportunities ahead.
Thank you very much. It's a very important aspect that you've been mentioning, that corporates can be very much actively involved into the educational process, but this sometimes lack of this dialogue with governments is still there. So how I would like to address this question to Mr. Aditya and to Ms. Rosa. So how, within your practice, how usually governments are collaborating with companies, including international and national companies, and how they can contribute to the educational process?
The digital technology, as we know, it will come into every household, sooner or later it will be in every hand. So this is going to be there. So government has to very carefully ensure that what is coming is properly done. It is done with lots of sensitivity. So our interaction with the developers is very, very essential. We must be engaging with them in a very positive and very in a kind of a continuous manner. If you do not do that, then a lot of things will come, and finally it will not serve its purpose. Technology is nothing but it's just a tool. It's a medium to transmit, to give knowledge to the children or to the students. So our engagement with the technological partners, yesterday we had an MOU with the gaming hubs to establish a gaming hub in AP, and our university dons, our teachers will be interacting with them in a more continuous manner. What lessons we are going to develop, what technology is going to come into the classrooms, how we are going to give these lessons, or in what manner the students are going to take it. So if this is not done in a very continuous and very creative manner, this may end up it may end up not serving its purpose. So the government of Andhra Pradesh is very, very keen and very positive about interacting with the developers, and that's what, yesterday we had an MOU, and we're going to establish some more centers so that our interaction is more continuous. So thank you
very much. And talking about the dialogue between the governments and social institutions, I would like to invite our next speaker, Mustafa from Afghanistan, who is the coordinator for social institutional development at Norwegian Afghanistan Committee. And I was really curious when I heard about this committee and the role that it plays within your country. So, Mustafa, maybe you can share your experience and how the different sectors within your country coexist and how they collaborate in order to foster education.
Thank you, and very welcome to all of you. First of all, of course, the digital pedagogy is very best tools for active and reflective learning, which is the base for inclusion, access, participation, and achievement. But according to our finding in rural Afghanistan, using technology as a tools and as a pedagogy for the classroom and from preschool up to university should be always along with critical thinking and also with creativity. It is very important. Otherwise, it is not only reduce the inequality, maybe it can be a case for inequality sometimes. We should be remember. It means the technology has two faces. When it comes with critical thinking of the teacher, parents, and also students, it may help the active and reflective learning. It may improve the respect in the classroom. It may improve the solidarity in the class, friendship, etc. But according to our experience with working with children in the classroom and also with some playgroups in the villages and communities, we found that beside the digital pedagogy, we also should emphasize on the creativity of the children and using the local resources that they have. Remember that the technology never compensates the local resources exist in the communities, exist in the schools, and exist in the families. But again, I would like to emphasize on in the process of using the digital pedagogy, we should consider the critical thinking and also be emphasized on the using local resources and creativity. I can call for it as an integrated approach for translation, as one of the participants asked how can we deal with such barriers. It is a process. It cannot be done within a few days. We be with empathy and passion, we can go ahead and make the digital as a tool for quality education and inclusive education.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. And bringing this aspect of using local resources for bridging the inequalities and using digital as a tool, I can see that Ms. Rosa is highly agreeing with you on the aspect. So I would like you to share your ideas on the topic.
I think it's a very interesting discussion goes on the screen, right? And thank you to audience that you are reacting so vividly what we are talking about. I do sympathize with everyone who is thinking about the underprivileged in the remote places of the countries and about the aspect that digital pedagogy is not accessible for everyone. We should probably be aware about this and think about this. You're asking about the government's aspect, what we are doing. The highest, the priority for the government is really to teach teachers, to prepare them to teach others. How to organize this? This is headache even for my country, which is only 6 million. And this Andhra Pradesh, it is 40 million state. I've learned yesterday that there are 62,000 schools in this state. I think really the dimensions, the scales are so different. But we do see that there are a lot of students here in this audience. I assume that they are from the private schools. They are students, the best probably. But province is huge, and certainly we have those schools which are in remote places. So I think this is the headache for any governmental bureaucrat, how to reach those teachers. Sometimes we have computers, we have all this equipment, but teachers are not ready. So with this regard, I do believe that a lot of apps which I have seen yesterday at the exhibition, they are very, very useful. And this is very important. But again, I do stress the point that best practices are very important. In my country, which want to learn English, because alongside with the computers, IT, English is key to succeed in career, in business. And English, you need a person who speaks, who is native speaker. And look, again, India is full of native speakers, right, of English language. And I do know that a lot of Americans, they learn Chinese by Skype from Beijing, from Hangzhou, from Guangzhou, and so on. And I do believe that it should be so many new companies also in this English-speaking world out of students who would be ready and available to teach English in new fields, in new countries.
Thank you so much. For sure, we can say that there is not one approach towards bridging the gap, and we have to make sure that all different stakeholders are involved into the process. So I would like to refer to some of our speakers that were previously mentioned in the project like Suren. Your project was selected by the United Nations as one of the most innovative projects last year. So I think the success of your project was because of the scale of it. The scale was within one country, which is not a very big country, but maybe you can share with us your ideas how this can become scalable, because this is a very unique classroom that you've created, including different stakeholders and involving all this kind of collaboration and support from each other. What is your vision? How it can become global, for example?
Thank you. Yes, our project Dasran in 2016 was recognized as one of the 5 best innovative enterprises in the world by UN. Thank you. And well, how everything started, then, for everyone to be clear. We started it in just one school, and our stakeholders were students, parents, teachers, and government. So each of these stakeholders, we have been thinking how we can make the education more interesting, more fun, and more effective. Then we succeeded in one school. We gave the government gave us an opportunity to go to the 10 school, then 50 school. So each time we have a small success. And then we finally managed to cover the entire capital. But the picture completely changed when we started going through the regions of Armenia. You know, today's teachers, for example, in Armenia, we have 38,000 teachers, and out of these 38,000 teachers, 8 years ago, only 5% were using computer on their daily basis. So we understood if we want, first of all, our software to be implemented and working in the schools, we need to teach our teachers how to use computers. You know, it takes us 5 years to reach from 5% to 81% of all Armenian teachers using computers. And most of the time, today's teachers, you know, the problem is that today's teachers are the generation which doesn't really want to accept this high tech. And the thing is, when a teacher is teaching in the class, sometimes they forget that today they are not the only source of information any longer. And the student can take the phone and say, okay, Google, and bring another 5 examples of any solution that teacher is bringing, and saying like, teacher, I'm sorry, but you're not bringing the only solution. There are so many solutions in the world as well. So what we really need today's teachers, they also need to understand that they need to be much more effective, that they need to be working with today's challenges. Otherwise, they will be outdated. Their students will not gonna understand them. Another issue was delivering the same message to one class, and it is impossible for everyone to understand the same message. If your class density is over 30 and you just send one message to every student, only 30% can understand you. The other 70 will not understand you. So you need to have an individual approach to every of your child. That is very important. So one of our successes was just understanding the main stakeholders in the education and working with all of them without neglecting any of those. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very important aspect that you've been mentioning. I can just briefly share the experience that me and my team we've had advising some of the governments on the innovation practice, and we were asking, so how do your students pass the exams? Can they use internet? Can they use Google? And they said, of course not. And we said, but this is something that has to be the center of the whole digital pedagogy, because we're not in the Middle Age anymore. If we have the technologies, we don't need to be afraid of using it. It's not someone who learns things by heart who will win in the current situation, but the ones who can make the search, process the data in the fastest and the most efficient way. So thank you so much for mentioning this as well. And I think one main stakeholder that you have not been mentioning is the corporates and the companies. And I know that Taskin was focusing her research on collaboration between the corporates and the governments. So is there something that you would like to share before we pass to the online discussion?
Thank you. I actually want to respond to 3 different topics that have been going around. The first is relations with the government, with corporates, and I also want to talk about internet, because with the increasing data, with decreasing data costs, internet is becoming much more popular. So now, I really share the opinion of working with government, and why I want to talk about this from an inequality perspective. When we use the word inequality, we use it very passively. It's just like inequality happened. It's like rained inequality. You know, inequality didn't just happen. Inequality was caused by something. And that cause is a very systemic cause, colonialism as well as many other sources. Now, when we talk about overcoming inequality, we take a very individualistic approach to it, as in it's one person that you need to fix. But if inequality was a systemic cause, we need to take a systemic fight against it. And that really means involvement with the government. Now, everyone has said that already, and I think we can't just simply say involvement with government. I've worked in Rwanda, I've worked with South Africa, and government is investing in educational technologies. The problem, as Rosa mentioned, is best practices. So what a lot of governments are doing is they're rolling out technology just in big batches to have a paperless classroom, or to show that we've distributed 1 million laptops. And that's not good enough. As Suren mentioned, and as Lydia mentioned, you really need to focus on how you're implementing this and how it fits into the local context. So the Twitter question asked, how do you get buy-in? Right? It's not about buying in. If you're buying in something, that already means it's coming from somewhere else. You need to have it ground up. You need to have the teachers building the product. When they build the product, they'll be completely invested in it, and they'll make it how they want to use it. Right? That's, I just wanted to add on a bit.
Thank you so much. Yeah, indeed, this is the question of ownership. And we've been involved into several activities in Africa, providing computers to schools. But even if the school cannot afford a computer, they can afford to build a table. And this is the sense of ownership which makes people more and more involved and motivated. So get into the grassroots level. So I know that we have a lot of questions from our online discussion, so I would like to thank you everyone who is following us on Twitter and on our social media. And I think Radhika or Simon, you would like to address us some questions.
Yeah, I just want to make an announcement quickly. We have a lot of good questions coming in, and those of you who are wondering, all you have to do is follow UNESCO NGIP and tweet in your question using hashtag TAGe Vizag. So the question is from Hilda, who is the winner of our next VR headset. And she asks, I'm concerned about children's safety online when introducing them to digital technologies. How can we ensure that children get the quality education without jeopardizing their safety?
Anyone? Well, maybe Mr. Aditya, because I know this is one of the questions you've been mentioning, the sensible side of the technology.
Thank you. As I said, technology is just a tool, and we all must know that, most of the governments today exist to control technology. Half of the government's time, most of the governments across the world, the governments exist to control technology, to regulate technology, to manage technology. We may call it in different terms, but this is what most of the governments are engaged today. Now, the technology is a tool, as I said, and it just brings knowledge or brings content to the school or to the household, to the child's smartphone or laptop or whatever. Now, the concern is very, very serious concern that how we ensure the children's safety and they get to know only what is really required for them. One of the gifts of childhood is sense of wonder and sense of inquiry. These two things are very important for a child to grow. And any digital technology must not subjugate it or suppress it. If it can liberate it, if it can unleash it, then that technology is good. And that can only be done through a proper handling, through the teachers, parents, and the civil society. The people who have the repository of knowledge with them, our teachers, our professors, the experts in the field of education, and also experts in the field of technology. Technology is not any more benign nowadays. Technology is changing so fast, and technology is, it has lost its the benign tag. It is really moving very quickly in each one of our lives. So the management of technology is one of the biggest challenges we face today, and in this, each one of us has to contribute as a parent, as a user, or as a person who knows how to develop and control technology. The content has to come from those people who are really in know of things, who know how to impart knowledge. Knowledge is just not to know things and then go and reproduce in an examination. Knowledge is a tool which you keep with you through your lifelong. It's a lifelong journey through that tool which you get in a school or in a college. And a school is just not where you just get to see something, read something, and go out. School is a social environment. Here you interact with people. There's a symbiotic relation between the teacher and the child. So all these things have to be kept in mind when we develop technology and when we send content through that technology. So it's a responsibility. Of course, buck stops with the government, so we have to take the biggest responsibility, but it also has to be shared with all of us.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it's not just about the speed of the technologies and the speed of the change, but it's also about the content, how sensitive we are towards receiving the content. I know that Taskin was focusing her research also on the fake news and digital abuse on children online.
Yeah, so what I wanted to add is when we talk about cybersecurity, it's not just about a big button saying click here and making sure the child knows not to click here. It's also about the type of content. And so today we have a lot of fake news out there. I mean, we live in a world where we have racist Twitter bots, prejudiced facial recognitions, contentious Google map locations. You need to be prepared. We need to know that technology is not neutral. Basically technology is not neutral. And to do this in school, we also need to think about critical skills in terms of digital literacy. So understanding that there's different perspectives online, even something like Wikipedia is not neutral, and a child now needs to learn what news to take and what news not to take.
Thank you very much. Katherine, you are the ones who is in charge of creating the digital environment within your country. So how do you cope with this problematic?
Well, my feeling is that to make sure that the kids get access to technology, as you mentioned before, they will just take their iPhone or whatever device they might have access to, and they will get to the information they're looking for. So the best way to make sure that they are absorbing the good information for their level, their needs, I think it's to make sure that the adults around them are aware of that technology and are able to supervise those children. If they just left by themselves with the technology, that's a little risky. So I think really it comes back to the point that teachers need to be taught how to use and promote technology and proper use of the technology. And eventually the parents also have a level of responsibility around it.
Thank you so much. So one of the teachers sitting here and helping to promote this technology. So what is the role of a teacher, like a moderator and an educator of these new technologies? And how do you teach your students to take care of the content?
Yeah, I believe the big part of the learning process is the relationship between the children or the student with their parents, with their students. So the parents and the teachers must monitor or must educate them which site is good, which site is not good. And then it's a process. The children will eventually access something not good, but the teacher and the parents must say that for them. We can't leave the children in the internet alone. That's a fact. We have to be there for the children. So that's our role. We have to be there.
I know that Suren is very concerned about it, having 2 kids, 2 wonderful kids, and being a digital entrepreneur. So what is the way to protect?
I'd just like to add my colleague. Actually, we don't need to be afraid of internet. Internet is just big source of information. We just need to teach our kids media literacy. You know, internet is just like library 20 years ago. When there was no internet, we were going to library. And in the library, there was also good and bad stuff. But there were librarians who were helping us to choose the right information. So what we need to do is become the librarians for our kids. If you are a student, if you're a teacher, or if you're a parent, we just need to teach them and be the librarian. We cannot prohibit them using internet. That is a silly approach. We just need to teach them media literacy. That's it.
Thank you so much. Someone wanted to add? Lydia? Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to add that media literacy courses are very important. And in Kyrgyzstan, for example, 2 of the schools have already, high schools, implemented this course in order to see how it's going to work. And the results so far show that children become more literate and aware of what kind of information there is, how to how to double check the information, the source, whether it is credible or not. So I think this soon, with time, it will become a part of the curriculum in high schools. Yes, until there will be no need, for students to be media literate, and they will have it, once they are born with it, like kids today. They're so into digital technologies, and they don't need to be taught. They know how to use it already. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I see that our online community is very active today, so I would like to proceed with the next question, please. Salman? We can hear you.
Just hang on. Yeah, there's one from Anusia who is saying, why can't we how do we plan on using digital pedagogies how can we teach humans what they can do better than the technology?
How can we teach humans
what they can do better than the technology?
What they can do better than technologies? Anyone?
Sorry, it's from Bhagya Sri Sala. Yeah. And
I mean this question is referring to different aspects of the human being. So we all know that we need to pay attention to our intelligent development, mental development, physical development, but also development of our human values, and not forgetting the human aspect in education, and thinking about the core values such as compassion, such as the communal service. So Santiago, you are very involved into community service, so maybe you would like to share with us this part of the human aspect.
Perfect. As I told you before, in ¿Cómo lo cambiarías? How would you change it? What we try to do is try to bring innovation into the classroom. How we create students who are innovative, who are creative, who are entrepreneurial. And when we started to do that, we started with a thesis. And that thesis is that information is everywhere. And technology is now part of our lives. But the thing is not just about technology. The thing is also how do we use it, right? Now it's not the most important thing is not who has the most access to technology, because everyone has access to technology. The one who knows more, because you have everything there in the web. The thing is how you use that information, right? And when we think about that, we think between the relationship between technology and education. And if we go beyond, when we think about it, we have that the young kids, when the young kids and the people, when they adapt to the technology, when they think about it, when they get that the technology is the thing that they have to go through, the people can engage with that. Wait, I lost the idea.
And I would like...
Can you repeat me again the question? Sorry.
Why does in education focus on humans, what humans can do better than the technology? So the technology is so good, but...
I got it again, yeah. So, sorry. So we think about it. We have the information, and the information is with us. So when we start with that thesis, that we have technology, but the thing is not just how we bring information. The thing is how we, in the era of technology, the thing is how we in that era bring to the kids, bring to the students, the idea that they have to be creative with that information. Bring to the kids, bring to the students that they have to be entrepreneurial with that information. What can they do with that information? So that is the thing that students can do better than technology. That is the thing that students and teachers can do better than just bringing information to them, bringing a platform, is how they think, what problems can they solve with that technology, what problems, what things they can do, what ideas they can bring from that technology. Is that. It's, for me, that the relationship, the relation between technology and education goes beyond that. Not just how we bring them this technology, but how they use it. Yeah.
Thank you, Santiago. This was a part of the
I would
human...
like to add
just one comment, sorry. I think at least one thing we know how to do much better than technology, right? Reproduce. So, I think
yeah.
And thank you, both of you, for this human aspect and human element that creates more engagement than any technology. And I can see how active all our panel speakers are now. All of you, I would like to give you 30 seconds to give your thoughts on this aspect. We start from KK.
I would like to supplement to Mr. Santiago, my colleague from Colombia. We all agree that, the education, technology is a game changer in the field of education. And it improves, the achievement for all, and also increase the equity among the children. But, by proper policy of the government, with a long-term vision, I'm repeating again, with a vision, when they draft the policy, not only bridging the gap of the educational inequality, I can assure that not only close the digital divide amongst between the rural and the urban youths, or the rural and the urban students, or the children, we have the potential decrease of the terrorism due to increase in international dialogue. So this digital pedagogy is a very, very much the right time in order to bring the peace and development, not only in the field of education.
Thank you, KK. This is a very important fundamental aspect. Rosa, I think you wanted to add something.
I think we are very much driven by technologies, by IT. The energy of IT and youth says to us that, look, only this brings us to prosperity. But I do watch that in the developed world, parents, they abstain children from technologies. Look, they don't allow them to get to all sorts of devices until 5, 6 years, and they think that the kid should build creativity. And remember, please, that, for example, again, Chinese example is the best to my mind. More than 1 billion people, and in India also, in all of us, the senior generation, we do remember that the best tool is chair to learn. Why everything should be in game? Why everything should be in 3D? So I do believe that the best scholars, the best teachers, lecturers, they might be different, they might be boring, but they are really smart, unforgettable, unreplaceable. So, and how you can replace them just with IT and games?
Thank you very much, Mr. Aditya. I know that you were always advocating to the role of the teachers and traditional values alongside with digital technology. So what are your thoughts about that?
We are talking of technology today. One of the important things we must all remember is how this technology is placed and where it is placed. This technology is going to be placed in a school environment. So we must, there was a question that, that human values. The best way to ensure that the technology doesn't transgress human values is increase human interaction, the extra human interaction. The learning process should be participatory. Like in a classroom, we participate in a learning process. When the teacher teaches, all of us study. Examination is individualistic. So technology should also be placed in an environment where it is participatory. And when the environment where it is being done is more human, when the child prefers to stay more at school, the school environment is created in such a manner, the teachers are there, and teacher being he is the pivot of the whole education system. He cannot be replaced by any digital technology or any technology. He has to be part of the whole, the content creation, the content dissemination, and how that content is assimilated among the students. So humanize the environment where the technology is going to be placed, make it more participatory. It's like, if there is a line, small line, something which is evil, something which is wrong coming in, draw a bigger line. Make it more participatory, make the environment more human and more, human interaction among the participants, that is teacher, student, and of course the government. That's what.
Thank you so much. And whatever the technology is, the human element is there, even if we take the most advanced artificial intelligence technologies. Since the creator was still human, we have to take into consideration and to use the creativity source as the inspirational source for all our activities, including the pedagogies, the digital pedagogies that we are currently operating. And I think that Taskin has something to add on this topic about creativity.
Yes, so we've talked about the human aspect, bringing that into technology. And we keep on saying, now you can Google everything and it just has the answers. I actually want to challenge you to do more than that. Because when you Google something, you're just a recipient of knowledge. You're just taking it in. And I challenge you all to Google famous philosophers. And I guarantee you'll just come up with a whole picture of old white men, right? And we know this is not true. We know there's philosophers from the Islamic Empire or from African philosophy. There's so much more. So what we need to do is inspire kids to be creators of knowledge. Go online and put your knowledge on there as well to equalize the online space. One more thing I just wanted to add on to Santiago. He mentioned earlier about his organization, the point about having a mission rather than, you talked about interdisciplinary rather than separate subjects. There's an organization, African Leadership University, and they focus on a mission, not a major. And I really like that philosophy going forward with education, not to focus on a specific degree, but to focus on a mission in life. And I think that can actually add to a much more holistic education system.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank everyone and to challenge all of our panel speakers. Since we have 4 minutes left, I would like each of you to have a sentence. If you were if you had one superpower to bridge the inequality gap and educational gap, what would you do? Please, let's have a quick round. Just one sentence.
I want to add that we should teach women. Women are key for the development, for the education of children and family, in community, in the society.
Thank you so much. Next.
Okay, I think it is important to also teach the value to children. The technology is just a tool. So when we teach the use of technology to children, we at the same time we teach the value. Like you have to protect your devices from virus, and you have to protect yourself from the virus can attack your health. So if I have a power to transform something, is to teach the good use of technology to increase the development in my country, for example, and also my older say, to teach also the women. The women can do many things when we teach them technology.
Thank you. Next, just one phrase, please.
I said in the beginning, the technology should neither be a toy nor a tedium. I'll try to find the golden mean so that it really, one of our ancient teachings says, let knowledge come from all sides. So knowledge will come from all sides, but it should neither be a tedium nor a toy for our children.
Thank you.
And as I said before, in the technology approach in education, the responsibilities of the teachers, parents, and society is much more than the traditional methods that we use. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Development is not only about the improvement in technology. We also need to improve our thought, the way we are thinking. So we need to balance both the technology and our mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe we have to be wise when we are updating our methodologies, because we have too much to learn from the past or traditional learning.
If I would have a superpower, I would want to inspire and motivate every teacher to continue on what they're doing. Thus, this will totally and really fast reduce the gap in education.
Thank you.
Well, I will start with this quote from Benjamin Franklin that says, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Empower me and I never forget." So I think this quote is a superpower of empowerment, right? And this superpower can be used to personalized learning, project-based learning. So it's very powerful. And in the last, I will remember the quote that I said in the beginning. Change the conversation from what do you want to study to what is the problem that you want to solve, right? This is how we should approach it.
Thank you.
Given the way the life and the challenges are going forward for us, humanity, I think that we need to be much more effective in regard of our system of education. And the only way to be that way is to invest early and a lot in the system of education. Because whatever education we provide today to our future generation, the equivalent echoes we're gonna hear in the future. I don't see any other way of creating a better future than the education.
Thank you.
So for me, the superpower of gamification is the fun factor. If you have fun, you forget your learning, and you're learning for longer. So in my perspective, the superpower is the fun factor.
Thank you.
I would choose to focus on not just the creation, but on distribution and maintenance as well, so that anything which is created can have its intended impact.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would focus on empathy, the human aspect, because that's something that can't be replaced.
Thank you very much. I think we've came up with some great ideas and recommendations, and if on the top of it I can add something, I think it's our all intergenerational responsibility to take an active role of active citizen and actually start implementing all these great ideas, whatever the environment and the current situation is. So thank you so much to all our panelists, participants. Thank you to the audience online and our guest and Vishakavatam. We are finishing our TAGe session for today and looking forward to talking to you again.